Welcome to Deloitte's Debrief Tax webcast series in Asia Pacific. Our webcast today is from our transfer pricing series entitled China Transfer Pricing Updates, Simplified Unilateral Advanced Pricing Agreement, Application Procedures. My name is Xiaoli Huang, and I'm a tax partner based in Deloitte China Beijing office. I have the pleasure of hosting today's webcasts. I have two speakers with me, Sophie Wei and Victor Zhang. Sophie is also a tax partner based in Deloitte China Beijing office. Victor is a tax partner based in Deloitte China Hong Kong office. You may access our bios on the left side of the screen. Before I introduce the agenda of today's webcast, I'd like to take a moment to highlight some of the features of our webcast console. First, all users are on listen-only model. If you have any contents-related questions, you can submit at any time in the Q&A box at the bottom right of the screen. We'll do our best to respond to your question during the presentation. Second, all PC users can maximize or minimize each box at your convenience during the webcast. You may also explore the icons at the bottom of the screen. If you want to download today's slides or related publications, please go to the Downloads and Links box. On the other hand, mobile devices users can view the slides and answer the survey on the screen. Thirdly, if you require an attendance record for this event, you can download your CPE certificate by clicking the Request CPE icon at the bottom of the webcast console. Now, let me give you an overview of the topics we will discuss today. First, I will share some background information of Chinese APA regulations. Then I would like to invite my colleagues to introduce the application of this new simplified procedure of unilateral APA and share some Deloitte insights on it. We will also talk about some practical issue of transfer pricing adjustment related to APA. And last, we will share some Hong Kong APA updates. Next slide, please. One more slide. Yeah. Let's look at the evolution of APA regulations in China. APA was formally introduced in China in 2002. State Council of China published the implementation rules of the Law of Tax Administration and Levy, in which APA was formally stipulated as a part of transfer pricing regime. In 2004, State Taxation Administration, Chinese Tax Authority, published Bulletin number 118. This bulletin was a detailed APA regulation, including procedure, document requirements, rights and responsibilities of taxpayer and the tax authorities. In 2008, China published new enterprise income tax law. Transfer pricing became more important in the whole context. In 2009, STA released Circular number 2, in which APA was even more significant. China participated very actively in BEPS action plans and adopted BEPS outcome into tax legislation. In 2016, STA published Bulletin number 64, which is now in effect incorporated BEPS minimum standard and best practice, like information exchange of unilateral APA. But due to the procedure issue, APA is not very easy for taxpayer. For the purpose of better service, STA draft this simplified unilateral APA regulation, which could save both parties time and resources. We do look forward to more efficient and successful APA conclusion in the future. Victor, you may have already noticed both taxpayers and tax authority pay more and more attention to APA. What do you think are the reasons behind that?
Thank you, Xiaoli. If we can move to the next slide. And Xiaoli, I think we probably all would agree that transfer pricing is often quite subjective. Revenue authorities may not necessarily agree with taxpayers' TP policy. And more interestingly, revenue authorities, they themselves in different jurisdictions, may not agree with each other either. So that this is really a headache for most taxpayers. And it is not unusual that before the year-end closing, we see multinationals from time to time, they would need to spend time and effort to consider how much tax provision should be made for the transfer pricing matters. In addition, even we are comfortable with the current transfer pricing policy, if anything new change or any new operational model in the business, no matter due to the external matters like a geopolitical issue or the internal business plan update or change, then there will be new uncertainty about the intercompany transactions. So if the taxpayer could reach an advance agreement with the revenue authority, it could effectively address the potential dispute and provide much better certainty. So instead of spending time and budget on handling the post-TB audit, we can have the certainty in advance. But Xiaoli, however, we always talk about the benefit and the cost. As you mentioned, both the taxpayer and the tax authority would need to make substantial investment with resources into the APA. And therefore, traditionally negotiating an APA in China, I believe, Xiaoli, you would agree, it could be a lengthy process. So if we look at the chart on the right-hand side of the screen, in 2019, China Tax Authority actually concluded around 10 unilateral APA and also around 10 bilateral APA. This is already a very good year comparing to some of the previous years. But if we think about the number of multinational companies in China, I have to say, currently only a very limited number of taxpayers could really benefit from the APA regime. So Xiaoli, I understand you are helping many large multinationals to evaluate the APA application in China. Is this in line with your observation that there could still be a larger number of APA inventory in the pipeline?
Yes, Victor, I agree with you that the APA is a good way to control the transfer pricing risk in the real business life. And yeah, and I have already assisted a lot of multinational companies to conclude APA. And Sophie, I also know that you have assisted a couple of clients to conclude unilateral APA last year. From your observation, what is the difference between the simplified unilateral APA regulation and the current practice? Hello? Can you hear me? Sophie?
Yes. Can you hear me right now?
Yes,
thank
Sophie,
you,
we can hear you.
Yes, I think
Sophie's network is not stable.
Yes, I think we can consider the difference between the unilateral APA simplified procedure.
Sophie.
From the current practice.
Okay. Yes, we can hear you. Can
you hear me right now?
Tell us your observation. What's the difference? Yep, please.
Yeah, I think we can consider. Okay, yeah. Yes, I think we can consider from three aspects of the difference between the unilateral APA procedure as well as the current practice. The first one is from taxpayer. Under current APA regulation and practice,
yes,
the process needs many phases and time-consuming with back and forth negotiation between tax authority and the taxpayer. So from some extent, it's not easy for taxpayer to get tax certainty in short time. So if we look at a statistic, in 2019, there were 12 unilateral APA were finally concluded in total. Among them, only 2 were concluded in 1 year, and 4 in 1 to 2 years, and 3 in 2 to 3 years. And there were 3 cases were concluded over 3 years. So we all know that BAPA, bilateral APA takes time, but in reality, actually unilateral APA is not easy to be concluded within 1 year. So that is from taxpayers' perspective. Well, the second point we can consider from the tax authority side, because of the time involved, the speed of concluding old cases is slower than the growth of new cases. So in fact, tax authority is under big pressure on APA application. Meanwhile, as you all know that in China in recent years, the Chinese tax authority is reforming the management mechanism, which requires them to provide more services to taxpayer. So under this situation, simplified procedure is just in line with the reforming of China tax system. And the third point, I think we can consider from the international tax environment. In developed countries, actually, unilateral APA is becoming a very frequently applied tool for taxpayers to seek tax certainty. So China actually learns from those developed countries as well. I think that is helpful for strengthening the international collaboration. So from all above, the simplified unilateral APA procedures really provides another channel for taxpayers in China. And as you know that before releasing the regulation, the pilot program has already been carried out in some provinces and cities with positive feedbacks and successful results. So that's my insight, Xiaoli. Back to you.
Thank you, Sophie. Now, that brings us to the first polling question of the day. The question is, did your company ever consider or apply APA in China? A, we have applied for APA, which is successful application conclusion. We have applied, B, we have applied for APA, but not yet completed. C, we once considered the APA option, but did not formally apply for it in practice. D, no, we have never considered the APA in China. E, don't know or not applicable. While we are waiting for the results, Sophie, did you get a chance to talk to your clients about the simplified unilateral APA? What is their reaction on this new change?
Yeah, Xiaoli, since we cannot hear Sophie now, maybe
okay.
I also share some view from my perspective. Sure. Actually, I believe a lot of clients, if they ever participated in any APA negotiation, they knew it was relatively a lengthy process. And sometimes I believe they also feel it's kind of painful. So once they heard there is a simplified process, I believe most of our multinational clients, they are very excited about this news. But however, I believe they would really want to see more details. For example, like how this process could be different from the current normal APA process, and whether this process could really help them get an APA concluded in China within like 1 year, which was kind of not that possible previously, Xiaoli.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Okay, let's look at the results of the polling question. Okay, that's it's a bit out of my expectation answer. Most of the answer is that no, we have never considered APA in China. I think maybe it's due to the complicated procedure. I think APA in China is not easy. It may be time consuming or need communication with tax authorities, not easy either. And the second answer is that we once considered but not implemented application. Yes, I think in this changing international taxation environment, APA is a good way to provide tax certainty for the multinational companies. So maybe some multinational company will consider APA as a way to control the transfer pricing risk. And very few have come to the real application of APA in China. Some of them have reached agreement with the tax authority. So that's a result of the first polling question. Okay, so let's get back to the slides. I'm not sure whether Sophie has come back with us.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry for that.
Okay, welcome back. Okay. Sophie, you just outlined the difference between the new simplified unilateral APA regulation and the practice, the current one. And could you please spend some time to illustrate some details of the new regulations?
Sure. Thank you, Xiaoli. I think I can give you a quick introduction of the content of the simplified procedure. From this page, you can see that is the precondition and the rejection circumstance. From the condition side, the condition one is the transaction amount, which needs 40 million RMB, which is equivalent to 6.4 million US dollar in previous 3 years of the related party transactions. This condition is exactly same as current requirement under general APA application. And plus that, there are some other conditions for the simplified procedure. The first one is from the compliance requirement. The tax authority requires the taxpayer to provide some compliance documents, for example, the local file or even the master file, just 3 months ahead of the applying. So that is the compliance requirement from tax authority. Well, plus the compliance requirement, the tax authority prefers the taxpayer if you have already applied or executed APA in recent 10 years, or even the taxpayer has already finished the tax audit, and right now it's under the monitoring stage. So in that case, the tax authority will look at those conditions for the taxpayer. So we'll feel that from conditions perspective, the tax authority will prefer the first one is the compliant requirement, and the second one is they prefer the tax certainty, means both the tax authority and the taxpayer has already aware of the TP risks in past years and have already reached agreement on those TP issues. While during the application process, there are also some rejection circumstances under this simplified procedure. If you look at the right box on the page, there are some rejection circumstances. For example, if the taxpayer, your business has significant changes compared with the previous year at the time of application, then the tax authority may reject your application. And well, for example, if the company right now is under tax audit, which is not closed, in that case, the tax authority will reject your application as well. And for the rest 3 points, they are all connected to the compliance requirement. For example, the related party transaction forms at the time of tax filing. If the company fails to submit the filings and the forms, that could be one of the rejection circumstance. And in the meanwhile, for the documentation or even the relevant information required by tax authority, they all could be become the rejection circumstance when you are applying the APA with tax authority. And one more point is about the company. If you have a lot of the subsidiaries, for example, in China, and they are just located in different provinces, and in that case, right now the simplified procedure may not be appropriate for you to apply. So that's the preconditions and the rejection circumstance for the simplified procedure. Yeah, next page, please. And this is the simplified procedure and the timeline. You can see under existing transfer pricing regulation, Bulletin 64, there are almost 6 phases to negotiate and finally sign the agreement with tax authority, plus a monitoring and execution. Well, under the simplified procedure, those 6 phases are combined to 3 phases. Means the intention for APA or analysis, evaluation, as well as the formal filing, they are all combined to the intention for an APA. So from the flow, you can see the time will be shortened because from the intention part, the taxpayer has to file the relevant information to tax authority, and the tax authority will get back to you in 19 days. To give you the response, yes or no. And then upon getting the acceptance of the application, then you will go to the negotiation and the signing process. In that process, the tax authority has to complete and conclude the agreement with the taxpayer in 6 months. So it's the really improvement on the efficiency of concluding the APA with taxpayer compared with the current timeline, as I just mentioned. So that's the procedure of the simplified procedure. Next page, please. Probably you will ask, so if all the phases are all the same, no matter the times we'll spend on the simplified procedure, so what is the interaction between the simplified procedures and the general procedures? From this flow, you can see that during the intention for APA, if all the analysis and evaluation is accepted by tax authority, the process can be moved forward to next phase. Well, in case of any rejection from tax authority, for example, your analysis result or even the evaluation result is unable to be accepted by tax authority, the tax authority can reject your application. At that time, it doesn't matter, you can go back to the general application process as well. So that is the first situation you can see from the flow. And even during the negotiation and the signing process, in case the taxpayer and the tax authority are unable to reach the consensus, for example, there are still some unclear points, or the final result is unable to be accepted by the taxpayer, then the tax authority could stop or even disagree with the application. And at that time, the taxpayer can go back to the general procedure as well. And even during the monitoring and execution phases, same thing could happen again. Because, for example, if you have very substantial changes on your transaction flow or even the related party transaction or the functional profile, so even you have already concluded a simplified unilateral APA with tax authority, then during execution or monitoring phases, the tax authority could still stop, or you can ask the tax authority to stop the simplified procedure and then go back to the general procedure. So that means simplified procedure is not a replacement, but another channel for taxpayers to get certainty. So both general and simplified procedures, they are worked together. Yeah. That is the interaction between two procedures. And next slide, please. Yeah, this page shows you the information required in the Simplified Unilateral APA report. All the information required are exactly the same as the existing procedure. So I'm not going to go through them in detail. And it's worth mentioning that even under simplified procedure, tax authority will still focus on the functional analysis, value chain analysis, and economic analysis, which are all the same compared with the current general procedure. So in that case, all the steps have to be fulfilled. And then you may be wondering, what is the benefit of applying the simplified procedure is, right? We feel that because the simplified procedure has very strict timeline requirement, which is 6 months to conclude the case upon getting acceptance from tax authority. So in case you have already get the acceptance from tax authority after your intention for application, the tax authority will prioritize the negotiations and even proactively communicate with the taxpayer. And based on our very informal communication with the tax authority, probably under this simplified procedure, for some key issues, there probably will be more flexibility on negotiation. So all of the actions is to improve the efficiency of the whole process. So that is a quick introduction of the simplified procedure, and hope it will be helpful for you. Back to you, Xiaoli.
Thank you, Sophie, for the explanation. 6 months. If we can conclude the unilateral APA within 1 year, that's truly encouraging. And yeah, from your introduction, that I'm really interested in this new regulation, but I realize that may not all the taxpayer suitable for the APA, because there is some preconditions, some documents burden, and some time to negotiate with tax authorities. And, so I think maybe Sophie, do you have some insights to share with who is suitable or eligible for applying the unilateral APA?
Yes, next page, please. Yeah, that's a good question, Xiaoli, because we have already shared a lot of information of the simplified procedure. So probably the audience will have the interest to see who is the good candidate for the simplified procedure. We think that because the simplified procedure requires very tight timeline to conclude the case in 6 months. So for taxpayers or even the company, if your functional profile is really simple, for example, you are a country R&D or country manufacturer or even a limited risk distributor. So in that case, the related party transaction will be single or very simple to be discussed with tax authority. Or even if the company is just concluded a tax audit with tax authority. In that case, we feel that could be an appropriate candidate for the simplified procedure, because it will be possible for you to conclude or even to fulfill the timeline under the 6 months requirement. And also, we know that for some multinational companies in China, they have some overseas payment, for example, the royalty payment or even the service fee payment. In case your transaction is very standalone or you have such kind of the transaction, probably you can think about the simplified procedure as well. Well, oppositely, if we look at the right side of this page, if the company with complex functional profile or even a lot of the multiple types of related party transaction, or even the company applied some special transfer pricing method. So in that case, I think for the company, may need to think about whether the simplified procedure could be appropriate for you. Of course, because when you apply your attention with tax authority, they will have their evaluation as well. So if they feel that your situation is more complex as they expected, probably they will reject as well. So that is my insight, Xiaoli. Do you have anything you want to share with us?
Yes, thank you, Sophie. I also want to share my experience in applying unilateral APA. All the companies should consider the cost benefit when they are managing their transfer pricing risks. APA is a good way to control the risk, but there's other ways you can also achieve the same goal. For example, they can control or execute the appropriate transfer pricing policy in the daily business. For example, monitoring the import export price or the payment for royalty or service fee. They can also control the transfer pricing risk. And the good communication with tax authority in China is also a good way to control the transfer pricing risk. And yes, I suggest multinational companies will look at their own conditions and circumstances to evaluate what's the most appropriate way to control the transfer pricing risk. And moreover, unilateral APA is one of the APA approach in China. And unlike bilateral APA, it cannot mitigate the double taxation risk if only China government acknowledge the unilateral APA in China, but other tax authorities do not acknowledge the result of the unilateral APA in China. So the taxpayer may face the double taxation risk. So yeah, that's my experience. If a taxpayer wants to decide to apply for a unilateral APA in China, Victor, what do you think what's the approach for applying unilateral APA in the new regulation?
Hey, thank you, Xiaoli. If we can move to the next slide. And the first thing I learned from Sophie today is that the local entity must be a good tax citizen. So when we say a good tax citizen, we are referring to the fact that the local entity must follow the annual transfer pricing compliance requirement, such as timely and accurate preparation of the related party disclosure form. And it should also prepare and submit the local file and master file, or otherwise this local entity would not even be eligible to this Simplified APA program. And before the formal APA application, we need to think through what would really happen during the whole APA process. So, for example, there are certain type of questions that the China Tax Authority are keen to ask nowadays due to the China current transfer pricing practice. So, we want to make sure we are comfortable to address those questions at a later stage. And after submitting the APA application, we probably would not just sit there doing nothing, but instead, we should keep timely communication with the in-charge tax authority about the work process and timeline. And hopefully we can make sure the application is on the radar map of the tax officers. Now, if we look at the APA assessment and negotiation process, during this process, very likely the tax authority would have additional either technical questions or comments. If the taxpayer could provide timely response, then the APA could really move on from both tax authority and the taxpayer perspectives. And also, I think Sophie just mentioned that under the new simplified APA process, the negotiation and signing stage would only last for 6 months, which is, of course, a very encouraging news. But this is a rather short timeline, and I believe this could only be achieved if the taxpayer and the tax authority have very good cooperation and a timely communication. So if we put it this way, when the tax authority could prioritize their resource on the APA negotiation, equally, the taxpayer should also make the same resource investment. Well, just similar to the old saying goes, we should strike when the iron is still hot. Lastly, after concluding the APA, normally both the taxpayer and the tax authority have the tendency to follow such agreement unless substantial business change or key assumption change. If the taxpayer wants to keep this APA agreement going on and renew it, it will be very important that the TP policy implementation and the actual profit margin is in line with this agreement so that we can show that the APA is really effective in practice and we have a better chance to renew it with the tax authority. So with that, Xiaoli, I also want to consult you to see if anything you'd like to further comment on this topic. Okay, with that, maybe let's come to the second polling question. The polling question is, what kind of APA you think would be helpful for your company in the future? We almost list out all the possible options. One, bilateral APA. The second one, the normal traditional unilateral APA process. And the third one, the new simplified unilateral APA that we are bringing to you today. And last one, don't know or not applicable. So let's give our audience a few minutes So, okay, let's give our audience some time to share this result. While our audience are responding to this question, Sophie and Xiaoli just want to check if any of you would like to share something more about the APA application exercise in China.
Yes, that's my question to you as well, Victor. Yeah, because I know
Indeed.
that you are working with your MNC multinational clients. So what are the key considerations for them to decide whether go for the APA application or not in China? So what is your insight?
Okay, so let me share something first, Sophie, and then welcome you and Xiaoli to further comment. I would say quite often our multinational clients, they already have very good understanding of the APA. In particular, some of them already have extensive experience in negotiating APA in other different countries' jurisdictions. So I would say normally a couple of things we probably should look at. The first one is really the local transfer pricing risk. For example, if you, Sophie, you have a very simple function entity in China, you can easily support the local margin with economic analysis. Then I guess, Sophie, you would probably not bother with the APA application. That's other special situation. But if you expect that, very likely the tax authority will audit you either in China or in the overseas country. APA could be a very useful tool. Because comparing to a formal TP audit, I think Sophie, you and Xiaoli would agree that we can have more flexibility in an APA negotiation comparing to a TP audit. And some other things to look at is really what is the scope of the APA and like what information is needed during this process. Because in China, before the APA conclusion, quite often the local tax authority would have the tendency to review the transactions over the previous years. On the bright side, this could help you resolve the historical issue, but on the other hand, it would expand the cover period. And Sophie, I think the last point is really practical. That is really, do we have a specific timeline of the APA? If we do not know when we can get the result, then it's quite natural that people will not easily go for it. So Sophie and Xiaoli, I believe multinationals will be very interested in whether this new simplified UAPA could help the taxpayer to get the conclusion like within a 1 year time. So with that, Sophie, anything from you to add, or Xiaoli, anything from you to add by looking at our polling question results?
Okay, sorry, I'm offline just now. Yeah, I saw the results.
Yeah, the result is here. The result is here. I think today the debrief is really helpful for the audience to know more about this procedure. You can say the simplified unilateral APA is really account a lot of the percentage on the result. Yeah,
I also think that the simplified unilateral APA is interesting to the taxpayers in China. And I also noticed that the tax authority in China encourage taxpayers to apply for simplified unilateral APA. When we see the full official publication of these new APA regulations, so I think the more taxpayer will be interested in these new regulations. And next slide, please. Okay. Victor, I have a question for you that besides providing tax certainty, APA is also can be helpful for multinational companies for their daily transfer pricing arrangements. Can you share with some of your experience on that?
For sure, Xiaoli, thank you. So Xiaoli and Sophie, so far I think we heard some good news about the Simplified APA program, and also it seems many of our audience are also interested in it. And in the next few minutes, we want to see if we can make a good thing to be even better, and if we can leverage this Simplified APA program to facilitate the cross-border transfer pricing adjustment. So let's start with the example on this screen to review what is the current limitation of the cross-border TP adjustment. In our example, company A purchased goods from the overseas related party and resell to third-party customers in China. Based on the group's transfer pricing policy, company A is characterized as a limited risk distributor. In this regard, the group would like to keep this local entity within a reasonable but stable profit margin. However, Xiaoli and Sophie, as you hear a lot of times, that due to the foreign exchange control in China, multinationals could not just use a very simple debit note or credit note to implement the TP adjustment at the year end. Instead, if they really want to run such cross-border transfer pricing adjustment, the taxpayer would need to review which options that could be helpful for them to implement such adjustment. For example, they would need to consider whether the China Customs Authority would agree with them to revise the historical import price. In practice, this, if not unrealistic, at least it's rather difficult. And it would also trigger some other customs implication. And the local entity could also discuss with the foreign exchange or the bank to see if they can make cash movement under the name of a so-called transfer pricing adjustment. However, even some local region started with the foreign exchange pilot run program. It is not common in China so far. And even for those with the foreign exchange pilot program, such program would only allow taxpayer to move cash in China to increase the local entity profit margin, but not moving the profit out. And the use of cash is subject to certain limitation by the bank and the foreign exchange authority. As a result, sometimes even the taxpayer has very good intention to follow the transfer pricing compliance requirement. They have difficulties in practice to really implement the TP adjustment. So alternatively, they need to creatively use some other approach, such like a related party service or a related party royalty. Even this is not really the intention of the transaction itself. And such transactions would sometimes lead to undesirable tax implications. So with the current limitation, let's move to the next slide to see what is new here. And actually, over the recent years, multinationals have been requesting for more and better coordination between the government authorities so that they can really implement the transfer pricing adjustment. Obviously, the Foreign Exchange Authority have heard about such requests. And as a result, in early 2021, the National State Administration of Foreign Exchange provided guidance to the bank on how to proceed with the so-called profit compensation for transfer pricing adjustment. Specifically, the China entity could provide a document from the tax authority or the custom authority as part of the supporting evidence. They can provide such documents to the bank for the bank to review and approve the transfer pricing adjustment. So that there is some, we would say, some breakthrough for the feasibility of such cross-border TP adjustment. And when we talk about documents with the tax authority, in reality, APA agreement is also a very common document showing that the taxpayer has alignment with the tax authority. In other words, if the taxpayer could complete a simplified UAPA in an efficient manner, like within 1 year, and it also has such agreement and print that agreement out and show to the bank, this could serve as an important supporting document to facilitate the cross-border TP adjustment. Of course, nowadays, this foreign exchange guidance is still very new, and we believe there are quite some important questions that our multinationals would like to clarify. For example, is there any limitation in terms of like the current bank account and any limitation for the use of the funding? And whether the multinationals could perform such type of transfer pricing adjustment in a two-way channel, meaning that they could implement it either by increasing or decreasing the local China entity margin so that they could move the cash in and move the cash out. And also, how frequently can they implement such adjustment? Can they do it monthly, quarterly, or have to do it on an annual basis? But overall, Xiaoli, with such combination of the simplified APA and the new foreign exchange guidance, I believe the multinationals could expect more convenient cross-border transfer pricing adjustment in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Victor. Yes, I agree with you. And in the past, the transfer pricing adjustment is only made on the tax return, and the real adjustment is very difficult to be made because due to the foreign exchange control. And last year we saw there is a pilot program to facilitate the transfer pricing adjustment to be made, but some official documents need to be the proof to justify the adjustment. So APA is one of the qualified official documents, but in the context of the simplified unilateral APA, I think this kind of APA document could facilitate more for our transfer pricing adjustments in the future. So yeah, that's a very good news for us. And Victor, I know you are not only familiar with mainland China's transfer pricing practice, you are also the tax partner based in Hong Kong. So maybe you can share with us some updates in Hong Kong's APA practice.
For sure, Xiaoli. Actually, when we say Hong Kong transfer pricing, we sometimes will say the Hong Kong formal transfer pricing rule is relatively new comparing to other jurisdictions. But in terms of the APA process, the Hong Kong Inland Revenue Department really took one step ahead of some other jurisdictions. That is, in July 2020, the Hong Kong IRD released the revised Departmental Interpretation and Practice Note, the so-called DIPL 48. In this DIPL 48, the IRD already kind of streamlined the Hong Kong APA application process. So when we look at this screen, it's kind of similar to what Sophie walked us through. So I would say great minds think alike. The Hong Kong APA process is also reduced to 3 steps, similar to the mainland China process. And noteworthy, in the past, the Hong Kong IRD was not a big fan of unilateral APA because they were with the view that only a bilateral APA could help address the double taxation issue. In this new revised DIPM 48, the Hong Kong IRD now, they are open to unilateral APA application as well. But however, subject to certain limitation. That is, they will only accept a unilateral APA application if your trading partner does not have a double taxation agreement or DTA with Hong Kong. So effectively, you could not really go for a bilateral APA. Or alternatively, the key transfer pricing issues are on the Hong Kong side. So that is more meaningful to discuss the TP with the Hong Kong IRD. But other than those limited situations, I believe the Hong Kong IRD still prefer more about bilateral APA comparing to unilateral APA. And if we move to the next slide, here we list out some interesting findings from the revised DIPM 48 about how likely the Hong Kong IRD would like to conclude an APA review. This is rather interesting because it's not just about you want to have an APA in Hong Kong or not. It also tells you something about how the Hong Kong IRD is thinking. That is, if the Hong Kong IRD would believe if you are only operating as a simple and routine entity, and your covered transaction is only a small part of the overall value chain, then the IRD's view is no bother. Let's save time and effort on something more important. And more importantly, the Hong Kong IRD made it clear, under certain situations, they would not agree an APA review. Such situations include that your overall business arrangement is not in line with the economic principle, so that your profit allocation is not aligned with the so-called value creation. And if your intention of this APA negotiation or any tax arrangement is purely for tax purpose, for the purpose of double non-taxation, in such cases, the Hong Kong IRD would not conclude the APA review. And I believe they would not just disagree with you on the APA, the IRD may not support you in other topics as well, if they notice your overall intention is for tax purpose. So, Shelley, I would say some key takeaway from us by reviewing such DIPL 48. That is the previously aggressive tax planning with the purpose of double non-taxation, since it's under more and more challenge. And the Hong Kong IRD does not want to be viewed as, does not want Hong Kong to be viewed as a tax haven. But on the other hand, if we have good business story, if our profit allocation is in line with the economic activity, then the Hong Kong IRD and probably some other tax jurisdictions, I believe, they will still back up us on the APA, so that APA could still be a useful tool for taxpayer to increase the transfer pricing certainty. Shelley, I'm not sure if anything from you to add from here.
That's good, Victor. Thank you very much for the sharing. I see that we have a few minutes left, so we will try to answer one or two questions from the audience. And Sophie, maybe you can answer this question from Timothy Tan. Will applying for APA lead to increased risk of audit for other years?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when we're talking about the APA application, I think most of the company will think about think about whether or not the potential risks will be exposed to tax authority. I think the answer somehow I can say yes, because when we are communicating with the tax authority, or even you want to apply the APA with tax authority, you have to disclose all the information they required. So in that case, for example, if we have some previous years related party transaction, or even the tax authority wants to know more about the background, then you have to disclose that information. But I think from another angle, I think no, because for example, from Deloitte's perspective, when we are helping our client to apply or think about to apply the APA, usually we will do some feasibility or even the evaluation ahead of the application. That means we have to think about or even to make some analysis of our previous related party transaction to evaluate whether the potential risks is very high or even within our expectations. So in that case, I think as long as we can manage our information disclosure, or even we have full picture of our related party transaction, I think APA itself will be a good tool for us to seek the tax certainty in the future years.
Thank you.
That's my thought.
Thank you, Sophie. I think, thank you, Sophie. I think a good strategy and a good approach to apply for APA is a good suggestion for taxpayers. And Victor, I have another question for you. Does it mean,
sure.
That's a question from Elaine Cox. Does it mean it's difficult for a new company to apply for APA given the annual related party transaction disclosure requirement?
Yeah, and thank you, Shelley. Yeah, we'll share some view first and then invite you to further comment. Because I think traditionally the China Tax Authority would like to conclude APA with company when the company's business operation is relatively stable. and the intercompany transactions are also relatively stable. So that is more meaningful to conclude APA in such situation. So alternatively, if our business outlook is not very certain, and as a result, even we conclude APA today, probably the business would be subject to changes over the next few years, so that the critical assumption may not hold over that time. And Xiaoli, I believe that's some reason why the tax authority would like to conclude APA with companies with relatively stable intercompany transaction type and also business. But anything from you to add, Xiaoli?
Yeah, from my experience, that when negotiating APA with taxpayers, tax authority normally are very cautious because it's a binding agreement between tax authority and taxpayer. So even though during the simplified unilateral APA, when we are trying to reach agreement in such a short time, the tax authority need to make their decision very quickly. So that could be a challenge to tax authority. And normally they will negotiating APA with some stabilized taxpayer. For example, they have run their business for a couple of years, and the tax authority have already know about their business. So it's not easy for a new company to apply for APA. So I think that we have already reached our end of this webcast. That's all the time we have for today. Sophie and Victor, thank you very much for your sharing during this today's webcast, and also would like to thank all the audience you were able to join us. And we encourage you to fill out the short survey that will pop up on your screen momentarily, and tell us what you think about today's program. If you join us late, please know that this presentation will be achieved for future viewing. If you feel that others would benefit from this webcast, please share the webcast via the share this icon or have them visit debrief webcasts. We will respond to all the questions submitted during the webcast in a couple of weeks. Also, if you think of any other question or comments later, please feel free to reach out either to me or our speakers. We will be more than happy to talk to you. And please don't forget to tune in to our next scheduled webcast from the Corporate Income Tax Series on 7th July, titled Double Tax Treaty Update. At last, from all of us at Deloitte, thank you for your participation in Deloitte Asia Pacific Tax Webcast today. Goodbye.